Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind, these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, happy Sunday, February 13th. I guess we're in store for Valentine's Day tomorrow. And wanted to jump in and take a quick look at SPY, QQQ, IWM, and UVXY, just to get a sense of where the market ended last week and what we might look for in the week ahead. Now, on the weekly chart here, just to recalibrate for folks, we had been in this channel since April of 2020. Fell out of that channel the week of January 21st and have been out of it ever since. This red level here that I'm looking at that stretches up to about 455 and down to about 453. That level to me is the level that it needs to establish over if it wants to actually sort of start to recover. And as you see, it's continued to struggle last week and now again this week, or this past week, with getting any motion above that. It's stretched its wick on the candle through that level, but there's not really much stomach for traction there for the time being, it seems. Now, that said, it didn't come down and retest the lows in these purple boxes, which are potential bounce zones, which when it was stretching through prompted me to put in this 414 and 400 potential support levels in case it can't hold those. I'm still going to leave those there because I think in the vast scheme of things, we probably have some pretty volatile weeks ahead. Still, I don't think that this is behind us by any stretch of the imagination. So volatility, just keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's to the downside, right? It could be to the upside, and more likely than not, I don't know if you remember the assertion of the kangaroo market, right? Not a bear market, not a bull market, but a kangaroo market. Probably a bit of that, in the days and weeks ahead, from my estimation. So that's what I'm looking for. So we might see a lot of bouncing around and jumping between these zones in these areas, but it's not really putting in any type of a channel or trend line at the moment. It did slightly stretch down the body of this candle last week, slightly stretched down below the body of the candle the week prior. And so, this bearish candle here, down 1.84% for the week, definitely surpassing the high and the low of the previous week's candle. Now, the other thing to look at here, I don't know if this will take shape, but I would be cautious for the bulls. Be cautious of a shoulder, a head, and a shoulder. We'll see if this shoulder actually takes shape or if something else happens, but I would be on the lookout for that to potentially take shape on the weekly chart. If we go to the yearly here, the daily chart here, you can see just an ugly Friday for sure, down almost 2% on SPY. The day before that was also down almost 2%, but basically coming in and filling this gap that was left in this day that was up about 1.5%, and gapped right through that red zone and then just plummeted back down through it to fill that gap, and then a bunch more. So on the daily here, you see how close it's getting to stretch into these purple zones. On the QQQ, I'm going to zoom back out to the weekly again. QQQ is a pretty similar setup, and I don't have the red zone in here, but it's sort of situated in a very similar fashion, meaning you see this previous support and resistance levels here, and that's basically where it's struggling to get through at the moment. So we can put that in here, but SPY and QQQ sort of, for the most part, at least in contrast to IWM, following a pretty similar trajectory or pattern here. Now, it's not as prominent to me, this potential head and shoulders on the QQQ, I think because there's maybe more sustained motion up here. Yeah, I think because this peak is sort of formed slightly differently, but I could see it sort of taking shape, though I would look for it to rise and maybe have some action like in or maybe even slightly above this red area if that's going to take shape in the QQ. That said, if a head and shoulders forms on SPY and it follows through with that, like, bearish movements that you would expect as an outcome from that, from a trend perspective or TA perspective, I would imagine that it's dragging down the entire market, and the QQQ will probably not set itself apart and not have any downside risk to it as well. Now, IWM, just again to recap, it's been about a year in this range and fell out of the range. Now it's trying to work itself back in, interestingly enough. These small cap shares actually sort of working themselves. Now they're having a hard time sustaining any strong upward pressure, meaning these wicks are still heavily to the upside, right? There's topping of these wicks and then the body of the candle getting formed down below. Here, a pretty indecisive candle, but that said, it is still inching its way back up and trying to sort of get itself back in range here, which, is not the most exciting situation, just going back into a range that it's spent a year in, but in the face of the alternative being another downturn and a further drawdown in small cap stocks that have, for the most part, a lot of them have been beaten up 40, 50, 60, 70%. I'm sure folks that are sort of playing those tickers and are sort of interested in those growth stocks might be starting to feel some warm feelings around the trajectory that they are having if this continues to play out this week. We'll see. Now, UVXY, definitely in a different situation here. I'm going to put the daily on here. It's just a little bit easier to see, but caught under this long-term downtrend resistance, as you would imagine. And UVXY again tracks the VIX, that's the fear index, and as fear rises in the market, UVXY goes up. So it's one way that if you don't want to short stocks or you don't want to play options or something, purchasing shares of UVXY in times when you think that a bear market is coming or that there's a short-term downturn, could allow you to profit. Now, also keep in mind that these leveraged funds aren't meant for long-term holding. So do a bunch of research before you buy anything like, SQQQ, UVXY, SPXS. Is that what it is? I think. And, definitely look into it before you purchase any, but I'll just say, broadly speaking, they're not meant to hold long term. But in any case, big green candle here on Friday from UVXY as the SPY was plummeting and or the market overall was plummeting. And it'll be interesting to see if it does try to work itself up into like the mid-19 range. If it gets rejected hard, once again, off of this downtrend resistance. Now, if this breaks and it starts to get up into the 20 area, 20 and 20s, then, you're obviously going to be feeling the pain of that on, SPY, QQQ, and probably IWM as well. And could definitely be, not just the byproduct of the stock market or sort of economic concerns or market concerns, but could also, of course, be geopolitical concerns as folks worry about how dicey things are getting sort of in the Eastern European region of the world. All right, folks, that's what I'm going to be looking at this week. I hope that it's a solid trading week ahead. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.